Hi,
Okay.
all of you, and welcome to our talk on natural menopause, always. But this time we're going to talk about cleansing and whether cleansing is cool and whether fasting's a bit too fanatical.
Oh,
So I'm Caroline Gaskin, and this is my lovely friend Fiona Edie.
hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's talk. We're really excited that so many people have come. So great.
Yeah, definitely. And also great to see some familiar faces. Thanks for those of you who turn up more than once. It really means a lot, actually. And as we said earlier, when we were chatting, we've had lots of people book for this session. So I'm guessing there's lots of questions.
Yeah, and we are really happy to field questions. So if you've got something that pops up, you can pop it in the chat box, or you can save it to the end and ask us in person. Because I think
Yeah,
it's great to be able to respond to what you need to know, and please do take advantage of us being here.
yeah,
With anything.
absolutely. Yeah, super. Shall we dive straight in? We're just going to do a little presentation, really as a kind of springboard to ask each other questions initially and get you, if you especially if you haven't met us, used to just being in the space with us and asking questions. Now, where did my PowerPoint go? Just give me a minute and I'll check that is at the beginning. And then I'll screen share. There it is. Let's do a little slideshow. Cool. I'm sure there's a way of automatically going to the slideshow. So I've used these images occasionally before, but I do love them. When we think of our beautiful planet, we think of it like this: blue and green, water and plants. But the reality is increasingly this, and this is the view from the peak in Hong Kong. And I don't think, well, there's hardly any green right at the bottom of the screen there. Picture there, this tiny, tiny bit of the top of a tree. Um, and, there's definitely parts of London that are getting to look like this. And this was in New York, dry, dusty, polluted, busy, cluttered, full of rubbish that we're repurposing, and the weeds coming up in between. And, when we get to menopause, we have been navigating our world for longer than we have when we're in our teens. When we're in our teens, our energy's young, it's vital, and we transition those changes quite differently. And women have, three major hormonal transitions to go through, some kind of conversation with fertility after our teens. And then menopause, when the system has been working at fertility or not for a long time, several years or many years actually. And it's important to understand what needs to shift at menopause because our symptoms are myriad. And there are certain ones that jump out as showing us that there is a level of toxicity that we might want to cleanse from. And I'll just quickly go through some of the main ones that jump out and then we can chat about these. But hot flushes, supposed to affect 50% of women. What are the real statistics around menopause? We don't always know. Night sweats, insomnia, but most stuff that happens in the night when we should be sleeping, we're looking at um, the liver, particularly needing to detox. Headaches, breast problems, whether these occur daytime or nighttime or on waking. Intolerance to alcohol is a biggie. And really any digestive upset. So right from the top end, heartburn, gum problems, burning mouth syndrome, right down to the bottom end, constipation, will show us that we need to detox. And tinnitus is actually a sign of the liver needing some kind of support. It's sort of like liver weakness and it can tie into kidney as well. But if you talk to an acupuncturist, they'll tell you it's your liver. Anger, irritability, intolerance, and too much focus on the small stuff. We can become very over concerned with the detail when our liver is out of whack. And a commonly said thing is, can't see the wood for the trees. Um, I'm sure there's lots more, but Fiona, do you think you want to jump in with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think menopause is a fantastic time to think about cleansing, because basically we've got to midlife. Our body's been doing an amazing job of filtering out all of those environmental toxins up till now. And our liver's been working really hard hormonally as well. It has such a big role in our hormone balancing because the liver actually breaks down estrogen and makes it nice and ready to be excreted from the body. And that's so helpful because it keeps our estrogen and progesterone nicely balanced. And it means that at menopause, particularly at perimenopause, when we're having huge surges of estrogen, that our body stays in balance, and doesn't end up with this old sort of sluggish estrogen circulating around and throwing everything out of balance. So menopause is such a great time, even if you don't relate to any of those symptoms on screen, which I'm sure many of us actually do, but it is such a great time to give the liver a bit of a cleanse. It is an amazing organ in that it can regenerate. It can regenerate faster than any other organ. So really, when you cleanse it, you really are like sort of stimulating new cell growth. And the other thing about it is it's known as a master organ because it controls so many different body systems. So when you work on the liver, this amazing range of menopause symptoms improves, but also it's a really sort of fast track way to raise your health and vitality. So there's so much, such a big advantage in us thinking about cleansing at menopause. It's such a sort of like midlife health hack, really.
It totally is. I mean, for me, it was total transformation learning to cleanse properly. And also, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me was keeping my blood sugar balanced through cleansing protocols. And that was a history of blood sugar imbalance and loving sweets and being something of a sugar addict. And I love when you said about, how much the liver does and how it regenerates. It's really useful sometimes to hear how fast or how slow an organ or a system regenerates. So the liver can regenerate its cells within 3 days. And I've had clients with advanced liver pathologies, who have rebuilt their liver in spite of it being extremely damaged. So we do need to work at it, and the liver loves a bit of work, but it can regenerate its cells within 3 days, which is just amazing to hear. And the other thing just to keep in mind is it's called the live, because it's really vital. It lives for us. And just to put that into perspective, some of the cells in our bones take as much as 18 or 20 years to regenerate. It's also news to us most of the time that the bones aren't static, that they are regenerating, they are in process for the whole of our lives. We just need to feed them the right nutrients to continue to do that. And we need to support the liver in its process. And it's actually easy to do that. It's easy to put some things in place. And that's what we do, at the beginning of our natural menopause course, is we put things in place that support the liver in its functioning so that by, week 3 of the course, women are saying, I feel so much better. I feel lighter in my step, my perhaps skin, hair, nails even have begun to change. Do you want to jump in and chat about some of the things that upset the liver?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing, the big thing that is often in there at menopause is the emotional stress, is how much emotional processing. So we know the liver does all this physical processing, but this emotional processing. And when you get to menopause and there's that anger and irritability and flares and resentment and that sort of worry, like, am I becoming like a bit of an old kind of, like a nasty old person. You get that kind of like, God, is this me? I'm turning into this person that I don't recognize. And I think a lot of that is, as you said, stored resentment, unspoken anger, and emotional tension affect the liver. But they're also a sign that your liver's clogged. So when your liver's nice and working well, and you are processing not only toxins, but also your emotions, then you feel, you feel light. Things can bounce off you, insults, past resentments drop away. And I think when we're in menopause, we really do want to say we're moving into a new life phase. I've had enough of this old crap and this baggage I've been carrying around, and let's dump that now. I'm ready to dump it. And it's really interesting when you said when we do the liver cleanse in the course, or when I do a liver cleanse myself, and I feel this kind of like irritation coming up to the surface, sort of in the same way that you get a bit spotty or a bit headachy, you clear out some gunk, and at the same time you clear out some emotions. So I think when you're doing a liver cleanse, as much as you can do journaling, or like something really energetic, or a meditation practice, or whatever you've got to move through the emotional stuff that comes up. And then I think at menopause, it gets extra powerful. Your liver cleanse at menopause is then just delivering across the board. So, yeah, I mean, what about you? What do you find is in there for the liver at menopause?
I think also it's easy to think about, so like when I looked at that line, stored resentment, that's something that I think resentment often comes up in relation to work. It comes up potentially in relation to male figures in our lives that we've perhaps kind of pushed against. We talk about glass ceiling in work, but it doesn't feel like glass ceiling. It feels more kind of viscous than that. But it's pushing against particularly male energy, or an overbearing boss, could be male or female, that kind of thing, that kind of energy comes up, and an opportunity to reset new boundaries within that. So, often it's a time when women find the strength to speak, because I think estrogen is very much a yes hormone. We need to say yes to the male energy in order to be fertile, to make babies. And so estrogen has that capacity, particularly in an estrogen dominant world, for us to be yes women. And I think that menopause is a time for us to really look at any stored issues around that. And the liver is what we call the seat of the emotions in Chinese medicine. And so it will have been holding emotions, and those could be negative. We often think about storing of emotions as being sad as well, relationship stuff or loss or whatever, but actually it can be darker emotion in the liver. So it might be that women feel blue and depressed for the first time in their lives. So, that kind of aspect of liver being the seat of the emotions and finding ways to shift that can be incredibly enlightening, and so the enlightenment comes through the shifting of held stuff. And it's, a lot of the conversation in the mainstream, I find, is about the physical, as you said, and not enough about the shifting of the emotional tone. It's a bit of both, and I think also what comes up, because it's like the liver is an organ that generates heat when it's doing work. So a lot of those symptoms that we talked about are symptoms that are in the upper quarters of the body. So the flushes go upwards, the night sweats often break on the chest, the insomnia, it rattles around in your head. The headaches certainly rattle around there. Breast problems, they're just above the liver. So a lot of these things are what we call liver heat rising. And so things that have been held in the liver, like even like heavy metals and other toxins, yes, there is an aspect of letting go of toxicity. So, when it comes to the emotions, I really like things like the Australian bushflower purifying essence, because that addresses both the physical and the mental emotional. And then it might be that, like certain times, we often talk about this, certain times at night of waking, but it's particularly between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., but even actually 11 a.m. to to 1 a.m. is the time of the gallbladder, when the gallbladder that sits inside the liver should be resting. The body temperature should be balancing. The mind should be resting. So we have this sort of period of time from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. when those organs should be resting and relaxing. But it suggests if we're waking then that the body's working hard to process food, like environmental and even emotional stresses. And certainly heart racing at 3 a.m., which is a common time to wake with heart pathologies, would indicate that the liver is struggling with toxicity to the extent that the heart is being woken up. So the liver's energy should be downwards. It's kind of calmly instructing digestion. But if the liver's disturbed by something, and that could be a late meal or alcohol or emotional tension, kind of not putting your troubles of the day to bed, then the liver energy moves upwards. And so that will have us waking with headaches, tense muscles, and feeling irritable. So there's this kind of encouragement in our cleansing processes for the liver to continue to give its energy downwards to digestion. And so that's how you kind of can connect with something like constipation, the bottom of the plumbing system, as being related to the liver, because we're another aspect actually is to hydrate, but we'll come on to that a bit later.
Yeah, and I think one of the sort of practical steps around that are eating early, not having a really rich, heavy meal anytime close to bed, giving yourself a good couple of hours. If you are somebody that gets very, very hungry in the night, or you do need a snack to keep going, you can have a light snack before bed, but you really want to keep your meals nice and early. If you do have a lot of anger in you from a day or have had a really terrible day, you can journal that before you go to sleep. And it means that you won't get a burst of unprocessed emotion / cortisol at 3 a.m. And I think the relationship between cortisol and cleansing, cortisol in the kidneys and the liver, is very interesting as well, in that one of the science reason behind a 3 a.m. Waking is that your liver's trying to readjust your blood sugar, and it releases a burst of insulin and spikes. So basically your sort of blood sugar gets messed about with at 3 a.m, and you will release a surge of cortisol to balance it. And that's why you're waking up. So it ties in completely with what you're saying about traditional Chinese medicine and the 3 a.m. body clock of the liver. And that's backed up in Western science by these cortisol surges, which are caused by exactly the same reason, by your liver having to do too much work at a time when it should be gently cleansing and gently restoring blood sugar balance. It has to instead do these big punches. And of course, you wake up as if you've had a shock. You wake up sweaty, hot, red, anxious, because you've had the equivalent of, dealing with a really stressful moment in your day, but that's just happened at 3 a.m.
Mm.
So I always love how the Chinese medicine and Western medicine, actually back each other up. Obviously, Western medicine's 2,000 years later to the table out. But yeah.
Well, and yeah, but at the same time, Chinese medicine doesn't talk about adrenals. It doesn't talk about thyroid. And those organs are part of the same system and meridian. Yeah, I think it's really good to look at that. And a lot of this, as we've said, is how we metabolize sugar, how we process things that raise our blood sugar levels, how we process. So it might be even that we choose to eat differently in the evening. So, less carbohydrates, less transposing our food into sugars would be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, the liver controls how we process carbohydrates, sugars, fats. So when you've got a good, well-functioning liver, you are going to be digesting those foods smoothly, but also you're not going to have dysregulated blood sugar, which of course can be the big reason behind that sort of center weight gain around the belly that we see so much in menopause, with the dysregulated blood sugar being the cause of that. So it's another, weight loss is never something that we focus on, but being optimally nourished and being able to digest your foods properly and avoiding diabetes, liver cleanse is, one of the key ways to do that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But there's a few things on this slide that are kind of worth looking at in terms of everyday habits also create deficiencies which make the system less able to function efficiently. So, tea and coffee creating mineral deficiencies, especially magnesium, and magnesium is the primary mineral to put in place to look after our bones in older life. So, often at menopause, it will be a time to address how much tea and coffee we drink, the quality of that, when we drink that, so that we're less likely to create mineral deficiencies, but also less likely to stress the liver in its action. And coffee, for instance, has a direct effect on melatonin production. So, melatonin helps boost our immunity, and it has anti-cancer actions while we sleep. So that sort of coffee earlier in the day, getting back to just one, not stressing the liver, has other benefits as well. And then things like, fizzy drinks, artificial sweetness affect different areas of the body, and create deficiencies. So calcium deficiency, for instance, can arise out of fizzy drinks. So I'm sure a lot of you don't drink those, but it's good to listen in and just be reminded of these things sometimes, because there's a lot of refinement of the palate that goes on in menopause, I think, in order to kind of come into a place of balance. Because beyond menopause, we still want those hormones, just not as much of them. And if we don't come into balance, we are really less capable of producing the estrogen and the progesterone that we do need. So, if we are constipated at menopause because the liver needs to do a bit of cleansing and letting go, and we start to use laxatives, we're going to deplete vitamins that we really need. Stress depletes B vitamins, creates free radical damage in the body and affects our hormone balance. We are finding that B vitamin capacity, that to draw up the B vitamins, is really affected post-COVID, and definitely post the COVID vaccine. So there are factors that we can address quite easily through taking some simple steps, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And ultra processed foods. So one of the main problems with those is, and again, I'm sure that on this group, there aren't going to be a lot of people eating a large amount of that, but it's the ultra processed seed oils in those that are really problematic and that strip us of our own natural omega 3 and 6 levels. So when you start taking in lots of seed oils, you are really depleting your omegas, and omegas are quite difficult to get in our diet. I hope that everybody in the group's on a good omega supplement, because they're so important for our skin, our hormone transportation, so really important at menopause. So if luckily nowadays you can even get crisps or chips, as they're known in America, made with olive oil. So there are actually seed oil. We're increasingly seeing seed oil alternatives, but really, I think that's been the most sort of insidious. Even for someone who eats quite well and they've moved on to oat milk, and then you discover your oat milk is 70% seed oil. I think it's been really insidious the way that seed oils are all in our food chain and causing so much damage. And another thing this made me think of as well was medications. And I've got an amazing book called Drug Muggers, and it lists every medication, from statins right the way through to, things you're taking for your migraine, and shows which nutritional deficiencies taking medications cause. So I think it's really important, if you are on prescription meds, to have a look and see what that could be depleting, and then balance it out, put that back in. If you have to take medications, then take them in, the safest way possible.
Totally. I just wanted to add actually just a few things on we probably won't talk much about HRT in this session, particularly, but any hormone replacement, so that even includes glyphosates and pesticides in the food chain that mimic our estrogen, plus things like birth control pill, morning after pill. These will deplete the body of B vitamins, vitamin C, iodine, zinc, selenium, and folate. So we definitely, if we're on that kind of medication or we've had that in the past, we might need to look at the capacity to absorb those nutrients, and that can be very easy to add back in. I mean, it's something like selenium. 4 Brazil nuts will give you adequate selenium daily.
Yeah.
A handful of pumpkin seeds will give you adequate zinc. So it can be easy to put these things back in with regular nutrition. We just need to know.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And the other thing about if anybody is on HRT or you know somebody who is it is so much work on the liver because it's a kind of daily dose of hormones, whereas in real life we get little, micro amounts designed for as and when we need them. Because it's a daily constant, the liver has to work super hard to metabolize that, particularly the estrogen, and get it out. So you really want to say thanks to your liver if
Yes.
you've been on birth control or if you're taking HRT or you've been on IVF, and give it that chance to regenerate and make sure it's up to the task of processing those exogenous hormones so that you can be as well as possible. Yeah.
I just thought I'd answer or ask you a couple of things in what we can chat about that have come into the chat box, and then let's look at some solutions, simple solutions to take away. Helen, thanks. You've got a couple of questions here. I'll come back to you on those in a minute. Claire asks, is fizzy water included in fizzy drinks? I would say no, just don't only drink fizzy water. Water, I would say definitely you want to filter your water and get out chlorine and fluoride, and your thyroid will thank you, and get out any other chemicals and junk. We Fiona and I talk endlessly about the latest water filters, and so that's I would say fizzy water's okay. Would you, Fiona?
Yeah, and I think you can mix up your brands of fizzy water. There's also supermarket fizzy water where they've basically taken some tap water and put some CO2 into it. And then there is the other extreme fizzy water that I once went to Greece, and the locals went out with bottles and we collected natural sparkling water from the local, village.
I was in Spain recently and they have that wonderful, I can't remember what it's called, but it tastes almost chalky. You can almost see the minerals in it, so yeah, absolutely. Flavored fizzy water is included. Only if you flavor sparkling water with your own fruit, I would say. Most of the flavored fizzy water on the market is junk, as far as I'm concerned. I even found out that there is something in Fever Tree, now that the company is owned by a completely different company, that really affects some people. I found that out literally a couple of days ago with a friend of mine. She said, "Oh, she gets a headache from Fever Tree, which is a mixer." And that used to be really nice. So always read the label and ask questions.
And you could make your own. The other thing would be to buy water kefir, and then you just make your own natural fizzy drink. That's actually really nice. It's nowhere near as strong as kombucha. It's super easy. You put some fresh fruit in there and some natural sugars, and it really changes your palate around fizzy sweet drinks.
Yeah,
you get back to
what water kefir. I actually have a soda siphon, which I've had used for years. But again, you are putting something in it if you're creating soda. So there's all that. What has created the gas, basically? Michelle asks, do you like the liver and gallbladder cleanse by Andreas Moritz? So having come from a family with a long line of women with sensitive livers, weak livers, congested livers, I mean, they will all have a slightly different story. I took many, many years to get around to doing that particular cleanse, and it's harsh, it's intense. I was fine on it. I don't know if I'd do it again. I much prefer using green superfoods, and doing some of the things that we're going to talk about in a minute, to yeah, I find them much better. It does depend on your profile. Do you have any experience of it?
Yeah, I've done it, and I really wouldn't recommend it unless somebody. My take on it is that unless you're in very good health, feeling incredibly robust and strong, then I really don't advise it. I've done it 3 times, and I did manage to make myself quite ill by kind of not doing it properly. And it was, yeah, my husband made me promise never to do it again. So yeah, I think if you're strong, but for anybody who's feeling fragile or unwell or weak, I would really leave it alone. We have so many other, homeopathically, we have these gentle, nourishing liver cleanses that come with almost no, hardship and really free up the body. And for me, that's much more now what I recommend for clients. So
Yeah, what it's really important to say what works for you, because
yeah,
I've done natural health, organic health for years and years and years, and genuinely doing superfood cleanses at menopause changed my life, changed my outlook. Um, I shared a lot of stuff, like lots of levels, and I absolutely love it. And I've coached a lot of women through doing that. And I only did Andreas Moritz after I'd done quite a lot of cleansing, and I did it not long after a superfood cleanse, so that I knew that my system could simply let go of whatever that type of cleanse was offering me. But I much prefer. I've got some herbs as well that I work with. I don't know if you've worked with those, Fiona, the Ingham's herbal liver powders.
yeah.
There's some fantastic, much more gentle approaches. Helen asks, and I can't remember, Helen, you don't have to tell us about how old you are, but she said, my hot flushes had stopped for over a year and then returned a few weeks ago. Why would they return? Now, I am I'm about to be, well, not long off being 64, which is kind of horrendous. I can't believe that's actually going to be my age. But I would say that I only really experienced the sense that I could do a hot flush in certain situations. And if I was very stressed or I'd spent a lot of time at the screen, forgotten to eat or something like that, then that would be a trigger. So it's really coming, Fiona and I always do this whenever we run the course, our 6-week natural menopause course. We both evaluate our own plans for menopause. And so if I was to suffer hot flushes again, or sweats, I would be saying, okay, what do I need to add back in? And it could be that I've taken my eye off the ball when it comes to magnesium, which is a fantastic support for so many different processes in the body. It could be that, as I've said, I had too many late nights, spent a lot of time on the screen. So really check in what's changed, to bring the hot flashes back on. And I know that's a classic homeopath's question. Um,
Yeah.
Helen also says, I use avocado oil and take Viridian Omegas.
Mhm.
Um, any thoughts on avocado oil particularly?
I think so. I think the question is there, like, what's the difference when I was talking about seed oils? So I was talking about industrial processed seed oils that are processed
Mm.
at high heat, um, crammed through some plastic filters. They are cracked fats essentially, and they are the problem. But you can have something like a cold pressed organic sunflower seed oil, and that's going to be okay. Really, when I talk about seed oils, I'm talking about industrial cheap seed oils. So if you're,
Yeah, canola, corn oil,
yeah,
anything. What's the other one? Hydrogenated vegetable
soy,
oil.
yes,
Oh,
soy, so if something says cold press, so something like, for example, cold pressed rapeseed oil, that's been used for thousands of years in loads of particularly the Middle East, in loads of communities with absolutely no problem. So if a seed oil is cold pressed and it's organic, then you can be pretty assured that it's being produced with some integrity. So that's the thing about seed oil. So if you've got a nice cold pressed oil, or you're grinding your own seeds, that's absolutely fine. Then you're getting the good stuff. But it's when it's gone through this toxic process with chemicals added in and with loads of heat that the problem's coming
Yeah,
about.
totally. And I would say for myself that if avocado oil is quite a heavy oil for me to process, and that
Yeah.
might be because my liver is more sensitive. So again, it's individual. And Nova asks about seed oils, and she says about ground linseed.
Mm.
Absolutely fantastic, because the linseed and the flaxseed can really help with repairing leaky gut. So these things used, and also, and this was something actually I was going to add, and I didn't actually put into the later slides, but Nova says using seed oil topically as a body moisturizer. That is great. So we can use in during a cleanse, we could use something like coconut oil on the thyroid and on the adrenal glands if we know that those are depleted, just massaged in. Again, that's an old school naturopathic tip. And we could use something like wheat germ oil intimately for dryness. So oils have an amazing place, but especially if you're listening from America, the vast majority of the conversation about canola, belongs there. In the UK, it's really hidden. And as Fiona said, we need to read the label when it comes to oat milk and these kind of how do they, when we need to make something look like another product. So, in order to make oat milk, if you've ever blended your own, I mean, it literally separates out the minute you look the other way. So you've got to give it a good shake, to use it in your cooking. Whereas when you get the oat milk from the supermarket in that bottle, it it's homogenized, and so it will have additives to bring these elements that don't normally like being together so that it looks like cow's milk. I mean, it's really got to read the label, haven't you?
Yeah. Yep. So somebody's asked about water filters. So
Mm.
um, my preference is in central London is a reverse osmosis water filter, because it takes out I think it's 99.7% of contaminants. So it really beats all the other systems hands down, apart from a distilled water. But having tried a distiller, I found it used a lot of electricity, didn't produce much water. And I
And takes your minerals away.
with your art reverse osmosis and your remineral and your distiller, you're going to have to remineralize afterwards. But yeah, but so distilled I know is cleaner, but it didn't. I need something that comes out of a tap on order to do cooking and drink with. So yeah, I really like RO. I think it's and you can do some stuff to restructure it afterwards, as well as remineralizing it. Try and put the life back into it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I've got my spinny thing with crystals all over it, and
Yeah,
some
I've got like a board which contains some restructuring device. So yeah, there's a
the
lot you
water conversation just goes on, but
can
it's just
rabbit hole you can go down, but obviously nothing's as good as a fresh spring. But in central London, reverse osmosis kind of ticks my
yeah. What
boxes.
we can do actually is, Helen said, can we put a link in? Let's send that. I'll send that out in the email, because we were literally just discussing that earlier. So I'll send that
Yeah,
out in the follow-on email. And Nova said she's just looked at her oat milk, and rapeseed oil is the second ingredient. So there you
yeah.
go.
But there are some brands without any, so you just have to check the
Yeah,
labels. Plenish, for example, doesn't have any in the UK.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, some solutions.
So some very simple things, and we'll just won't spend too long going through these. But I'm a big fan of dry skin brushing with a natural bristle brush before your shower or your bath. Honestly, if you do that the whole body every day for 2 weeks, you can message me and ask me for your money back. Because I genuinely think if you do that every day for 2 weeks, you're going to feel brighter. Your skin's going to respond. Even your fat cells, your leptin receptor sites under the surface of the skin will say thank you. So it's a fabulous practice to get into. Costs next to nothing, just the cost of a good quality natural bristle brush. If you go for a traditional, you know, Greek or Russian massage, that's what they brush you with before using the oils. So hydrotherapy, hot and cold showers afterwards. I've just written breakfast there. I don't know why I've put breakfast in before your breakfast. Hot and cold showers, hydrotherapy. Really, really great to follow the dry skin brushing. And a lot of people have, I mean, warm water in the morning is quite comforting. I actually like to drink green tea myself. What do you think about warm water and a squeeze of lemon, Fiona? Because there's so many good and bad conversations around that.
So I personally, I do warm water and a tiny sprinkle of salt as an adrenal tonic in the morning. And I might add a squeeze of lemon to that. I think that there's that watch out on your teeth. So anything. So there's people putting in whole lemons. If you're ever doing lemon in the morning, you basically want to brush your teeth first, because then you can drink it. If you drink something lemony and then go and brush your teeth, you basically soften your enamel, and then you go and brush your enamel off. So just make sure you have that after brushing your teeth. But I think, it's really quite cleansing. If you're a bit anemic, I would avoid the lemon as well. That can be a little bit, if you're somebody that knows that you've either got heavy periods or you've got a history of anemia. So that's why I'm sort of moved on to warm water and a tiny bit of salt now. But it's the water part, it's the good water part that's doing the cleansing there. And it's so many people wake up dehydrated and go straight into a coffee. It feels so good when you start doing warm water every day. I think it's quite addictive.
My current is a glass of water, not actually warm water. I just like room temperature water.
Yeah.
Glass of water, and then I follow with my minerals, so humic and fulvic acid, and then I'm testing out H2 tablets, so hydrogen tablets, just seeing what happens with that. Marcus persuaded me. I talked about it. But apple cider vinegar, again, something that I would rather use my apple cider vinegar in a dressing on a salad, and go for something much simpler in the morning myself. What do you think about apple cider vinegar?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It can feel quite strong. I think, I know that people get really into it, but again, a light salad before your meal, it's a great way of pepping up your digestive enzymes before a meal. But I don't really doing a shot of it, just a little bit. That's how it's been consumed in traditions with great digestion. Italians, French salad at the start of a meal with a bit of dressing on it, like that. I think that food first way is simplest.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm a big fan of having some fiber in the morning when it comes to perimenopause rather than fasting, because we naturally get a cortisol surge around 5 a.m. that gets us beginning to wake up or up and out of bed. If we suddenly awake at 5 a.m., it indicates that maybe that cortisol surge is too strong, but there's a natural wakening in us. And then that cortisol is meant to drop off, so that we feel balanced for the rest of the morning. But if we start to fast in menopause, I find that most women become wired, too anxious by mid-morning. So it's really important to have something, even if it's small. I put forward to most of the women that I see in my practice that fasting is something that stresses the system at this stage.
Yeah, and we're already dealing with so many additional stresses at menopause, and the body is basically dealing with these hormonal surges. And you need to be kind of like fighting fit for that. And not eating is going to be unnecessarily creating an external stress. It's great to have, those little hormetic stresses at times when we're well and we're well resourced, but menopause is a big stressor in itself. So we don't want to be layering in anything else. It's not really the time to go hardcore ice bucket challenge, or it's a little phase, it's a short window where we nourish and look after ourselves. And I think fasting exactly just creates these kind of cortisol surges. Women will talk about feeling shaky in the mornings. They'll be absolutely starving by the time they eat. It can end up really impacting hot flashes as well. I really, what we teach in the course is a lot about stable eating, stabilizing the blood sugar, nourishing our systems, rather than bringing in additional stressors at a time of life when we've really got enough stress going on. I think a lot of those systems are designed around men, and a lot of them are designed around different life stages, around much younger women, for example. So we have to do this our way.
Or I'm going to say hands up, older women. I'm very happy to have very little in the morning, but I don't think I could have done that through menopause. So now I might have, literally an orange with a few lightly toasted pumpkin seeds on it, so fresh orange. And I feel great. And it's really important to check in with yourself. If I didn't, I would be having, some nice wholemeal toast with an egg on it, so it's a bit of fiber and a bit of protein in the morning, and certainly generally eating more protein. But, that moves away from perhaps a kind of cleanse conversation.
Yeah. We'll do that in the next one. We're doing food in the next talk.
Yeah. Exactly. Learning to breathe. I'm not going to focus too much on that today, but that can be really, really helpful, because sort of 70% of our detoxification can take place through the breath. And walking for 30 minutes daily to move the fluids of the body that don't rely on the heart as a pump. That is often better exercise. So we're moving into exercise and the restorative aspect, particularly in the second half of our cycle. So the first half of the cycle would be the time to do something more vigorous, like running, high intensity interval training, all these things we talk about on the course. But this kind of getting into a pattern that suits us when it comes to teaching the body to restore in order to let go. So in the morning is best. And again, there's lots of factors around your melatonin and getting light into your system that are beneficial. And another walk after lunch would be really amazing. So, that's an incredible practice to get into, because most of us don't see enough daylight, and have to discipline ourselves to do that, particularly with desk-bound, working at home, etc. And I'm a big fan of a 3 p.m. lie down, 15 minutes at the time when your kidneys are moving into a slightly different regulatory process. That can be a really great part of a cleanse. So all of these are very simple steps, but all of them are cleansing, restorative, nourishing, great practice to get into, but definitely something that you want to frame a cleanse with. Let's just have a quick flick to the next screen. And we'll talk about superfoods more next time. But just some thoughts about these.
Yeah, so just reading through this. So I love these because obviously these are very low cost. Everything on here is incredibly low cost. Everything is relatively easy to access. And really that's what we want. We don't want to be, supplements can be a lot of work on our liver and on a system that's not digesting well. So always lifestyle, food first, and very simple supplements or homeopathy is a really good route for the body. And really, when you're cleansing, you don't want to be layering in a load of stuff that's making life kind of harder for yourself as well. Journaling we've talked about. I love castor oil packs. Those are so easy to do once you've got your kit, and you can use them. They're great in winter. They're great. And just really, I find them really comforting. So that's something that kind of, if you've got a birthday coming up and got a little list of, somebody could give you one of the actual professional kits, are really nice to have. And Himalayan salt.
Can I just say I'm an old flannel girl?
Yeah, no, I've got a jar of Mankey bandages, and I'm dreaming of an actual kit. I'd love that.
I soak my flannel and or flannels in whatever you wash with. Probably they'd soak well in borax actually. And then yeah, they get a good wash. But yeah, I use a flannel and nice organic castor oil and a hot water bottle. But that this if you're cleansing and your bowel goes slow, or if you're suffering from constipation, but any of the digestive issues, 20-minute castor oil pack on your liver every day is just such a gentle way to encourage the system to cleanse efficiently.
Yeah. And if you've got a good, daily and minimum of one daily comfortable bowel movement, you are then excreting that excess estrogen out of the body, and getting that estrogen
Yes,
out avoids estrogen mediated cancers, for example. So great. You really, having a daily bowel movement is kind of part of the aim of the cleanse as well. Get the liver up and running, and then get your bowel moving. It's really, really important
absolutely.
for
Yeah,
your
yeah. And
mental health.
the Epsom salt baths, I always talk about magnesium, and I know I sound really boring, but it's so important. So, an Epsom salt bath using a kilo of salts a week is a great way to get magnesium into your system, very detoxifying in itself. And then
Yeah.
we've got a couple of homeopathics we mentioned here, Nux vomica and Califos. Very simple, those for a couple of weeks with everything else that we've talked about today. Really great addition to cleansing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention actually, because I got a message in my Facebook group, someone saying I would need to be careful as I easily get hypoglycemia, so imbalanced blood sugar basically.
Mm-hmm.
And too much fiber means too many bowel motions, and suddenly I am low in sugar energy. Fair enough. And a detox would need to have lots of protein and iron to keep me feeling okay. I think that's absolutely possible using a lot of what we've talked about today, maybe tweaking with some superfoods. So I know that kind of got quite specific. But yeah, absolutely. I think you can, you just need the right framework.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's it for that little screen
Right.
share.
Okay. Should we do some slides on the course, and
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
have
Let me
questions.
just find that because I just
So,
need to get that slideshow open.
okay, so Helen was saying she puts lemon in boiling water. Oh, that's nice. And then drinks that in the morning, and is going to wait until after she brushes her teeth. So that's good. Um, And then it looks like dates and orange juice in the morning. I think dates are great. Dates have actually quite a nice way of balancing your blood sugar. And they have a lovely thing in Morocco where the dates are stuffed with almonds or walnuts,
Mm.
and then dipped into a kind of argan oil, because I'm just back from Morocco, dipped in an argan oil and honey dip, and you get that kind of protein with the dates. And I think that just makes them the perfect snack.
I would totally agree. I think dates on their own can spike the blood sugar. Two, like medjool dates, for instance, would provide you with a lot of nutrition, really rich in minerals, very diverse. They are the kind of food that you could have a few dates in your pocket and keep going for a long period of time, just munching on those as needed. But I would probably go for, if you can, the dates that have got. Why didn't you take me to Morocco? Shouldn't take me either. Yeah, I would probably have. Yes, so a couple of, so 4 Brazil nuts, 2 dates, for instance, would be great. I think that's a really great kind of matrix, or dates and walnuts, really good. Most of the nuts are nutritious. Um, and the other types of dates that are more the fresh dates, or dates that are less sweet, have got more fiber content in them. So again, you can even tweak your dates to get a little bit more appropriate or helpful at menopause. So let's just get that. There are a couple of other questions in there.
I'm just having a look. I have to get my. Now I've just lost the chat box. Oh, there it's back again.
Oh, it's so difficult, easy to lose the chat box.
So I think we're all good. Someone was saying rude health as well as Plenish are good oat milks, non-dairy milk.
Yeah, great, good.
Okay, great. So yeah, we're
Ooh,
going to chat a little bit about the course that we've got coming up, which starts in April.
yeah, about 6 weeks' time, I think.
Yeah, so it's a while away, but it's a 6-week group coaching course. So you join us and a small group of women, and we share information every week, and we talk about lifestyle, nutrition, homeopathy, and the approach is very similar to the approach we've shared tonight, whereby it's practical, it's easy, it's inexpensive, and what we're looking to do is provide protocols that are easy to incorporate into your life and easy to keep going when the 6 weeks are over. And we're really designed a course that gets you through menopause, but is then designed for that last part of our lives as well. It is forward looking about how to be well and vital from now on in. So it's not just limited to that time period. And we actually send you homeopathic remedies as included in the price, so they arrive at your door, and then we follow a protocol, and we all take the remedies together as we move through the course. So we start with a liver cleanse, and then we progress from there through hormonally balancing, sorting out our bodies, basically. So it's a really comprehensive healing 6 weeks as well.
Yeah, and the course is 6 weeks, but we have a WhatsApp group throughout, and that we keep open for about 4.5 months beyond the course, and you still have access to all the videos. So we record the live sessions as well as you've got the weekly recorded webinars to look at. And you get a workbook every week, and really what you come out with is a plan for menopause and the capability of evaluating that and tweaking that as needed as you go along. And we see women throughout all of menopause. I really like to welcome in women who are pre-menopause, women who've experienced some kind of surgery, women who are post-menopause. We get a lot of women who are on HRT or have tried HRT and it hasn't worked for them or it hasn't fixed everything. We also get amazing results. We actually got a lot of 5 out of 5s last time, which we just feel really humbled by. That's amazing.
Yeah, so we ask people to track their symptoms through the course, so from the beginning through to the end. And we see, so people can come in with a few symptoms, some people can come in with so many symptoms. So it depends how many you sort of start with, how many you finish up with. But you'll see everybody across the board reports quite dramatic improvements. And Shelley has just posted, I have done and can definitely recommend the course. So we have some live feedback there from Shelley.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think you've said that. We've done this one, Caroline. It's for
Yeah, I think so. I just think there's a lot of room for women who are on medication and want to optimize their health. So I was doing a student tutorial earlier on today, and a student had 2 clients who had surgery, and that was for quite serious. I think they both had cancers and were worried about osteopenia. So their bones were thinning, which happens on the cancer, the medication that we suppress the periods with. And we were looking at supports, so we get a lot of questions on the course. And, there's so much you can do to help specific conditions as well.
Yeah, so it starts at the end of April. There you go. So 6 sessions from the 28th through to the 2nd of June. And we're always on at 7 to 8:30 p.m. And it's in the live sessions, we have a lot of time to get feedback from everybody. So you kind of get the video to watch, you work through it, you work through a week, you try everything, and then you come back and join the group. And everybody supports each other. Everyone's there to keep each other going. It's a lovely community. I think this will probably be our sixth one. The community keeps growing, and it's so supportive. It's always a fantastic group of women.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that we did change about the structure of the course is we created the pre-recorded webinars with all the information in that you can watch as often as you want, and then bring your questions about the content to the live sessions, so that the live sessions are much more about you and your experience and meeting your needs. And that, that really improved the ratings on the course, but it just feels really good to us because it feels like we can meet the needs of women on the course much better, because a lot of the teaching has gone into pre-recorded information. So yeah, it's just a really lovely way to work.
So we cover really getting into understanding what's happening in your body. Once we understand what's going on, it's so much easier to put and to keep protocols in place to manage that. So we're really encouraging us, I found that menopause was a chance to understand my hormones in a way I had never been taught before. So it's really a chance for you to sort of catch up on what you've been experiencing, your reproductive years as well, and really understand what's happening in your body. And it's very practical. It's tips, it's hacks, and we're encouraging you to make it work for you. Everybody is an individual on the course. And I think even as we've talked about tonight, some women don't like to eat in the morning. People like apple cider vinegar. Some things work for some people and not for others. And that is really what we're encouraging you to find out through this course, is what is your pathway through menopause going to be? What is your plan for menopause? So that we don't leave you high and dry. We leave you coming out of the course with a plan and knowing what next steps to take. And I think we've got some nice comments in from Inga. Thank you. So much knowledge comes from Fiona and Caroline, and Claire Moncrief, who says highly recommended.
Hi, Claire. I didn't know you'd signed up.
And we have a new resource as well. We've put all of our videos. Next slide. Not this one. No, the one after that. I think it's not. Yes, this one. Natural. That one. No.
Which one?
No. The one that
Which
says
one?
Menopause Decoded, the YouTube channel. No, this one. We've got a YouTube channel where we put all of these talks that we've been doing. I think we've got 9 talks on there, so it'll be 10 after tonight. And we've got some short clips as well. So you just have to search on YouTube for Natural Menopause Decoded. That is our and we're going to be adding to that. So I think at the moment, it literally got finished yesterday. So if you do want to watch more videos and learn more about natural menopause, there's a load of stuff on there. And we have another talk coming up in a couple of weeks. I think, do you want to talk about the extra special thing we've got going on?
Oh, yeah. So we are, before this next course, we've got something. We're kind of launching it in a different way to the way that we've done it before. So I'm just going to say, look out for that in your inbox.
Oh, yeah. So it's free. Anyone can join. We'd love you to come and join us on this. It's a little short. I'll give a bit more of a clue. It's only 4 days. And yeah, it's going to be something we can
start.
So we're just teasing it now.
Brilliant. Cool.
Have a look at our YouTube channel and look out for our emails, because there's some more good stuff coming.
Brilliant. I'm just going to see if there's any new questions. Would this suit, Claire asks, would this suit a 24-year-old struggling with hormonal imbalances? I would say ideally we should run a course for younger women.
Yeah, I think
because everybody really is going to be going through menopause. But Fiona and I, nearly there thinking about it. But Fiona and I we have talked about this. So thanks for the encouragement.
Yeah, it would be good, wouldn't it, to do a midlife, not even a midlife, especially young women, if they knew how to manage their hormones, it would be such a gift.
Yes.
30 years.
Helen's asked about the price of the course, and it's around £400. I think it's 395 or 385. And forgive me for not knowing exactly. That's
Yeah.
the sort of thing I need to go and look at a
Our
piece of paper to remember.
our
The
website.
reason for that is because if you're in America and overseas, we have to charge a little bit more to post the remedies to you. So yeah,
So we
it's
have
around that.
our website is naturalmenopausecourse.com. And so if you go on naturalmenopausecourse.com, it's got all the dates and it's got the prices and it's got the information and a little summary video of how the course works as well. And you can sign up or just, say you want extra information on that website. So
Yeah.
naturalmenopausecourse.com is the place to
And
go.
I'll share that in the email tomorrow. I'll just put that in the chat box, but I'll share that in the follow-on email. So you'll all get a link to the recording to catch up on, because we talked about a lot tonight actually. And you
Yeah.
could definitely write yourself a little, cleanse for 2 weeks and see how that feels.
Yeah.
And the knock-on effect, if you are still menstruating, is a more comfortable time at menstruating as well. So, it's lots of benefits.
Great. And also, it's a great time of year to do a cleanse. Come out of winter, sun's coming up. It's the time when all through history, people get out, start eating their dandelion salads and having nettle tea because it is
Exactly.
to move our diet on. So yeah,
Exactly. All my walks, I kind of keep seeing the nettles popping up. So I'm assuming that this year is a good year for me to have nettles and nettle soup. They're talking to me.
yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for all coming, and we will see you all next time.
Great. Yeah,
Bye
thank
for
you
now.
so much. Bye, everybody. Bye, 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 bye.